What if you were getting closer to the hospital bed because of the coffee you believed was keeping you alive? Recalls have already spread across 48 states in America, revealing poisons, mildew, pesticides, and even deadly germs in brands that millions of people still drink every morning. The people most affected are working families struggling to make ends meet and seniors on fixed incomes. After a strong brew, how many more pacemakers will fail? The weight of hidden heavy metals will cause how many more kidneys to fail? And how long will businesses continue to smuggle poison into paper cups while hiding behind happy baristas? Over 128,000 hospitalizations due to foodborne toxins occur annually in the United States, with older persons accounting for the majority of these cases, according to CDC data. What comes next if recalls are already occurring from coast to coast? The truth becomes personal in this devastating story. We reveal the startling truth about 7 coffees that you should immediately give up drinking now. Starbucks comes in first. When you enter a Starbucks, you're purchasing more than just coffee. You're purchasing a small piece of stability in a constantly shifting world. Against the tumult, the paper cup feels like armor. "You're secure here," the green siren on the logo whispers. That assurance of stability is invaluable to the many elderly Americans who must juggle prescription drugs, pensions, and price tags. But what if the trap is that very promise? What if the pleasure they enjoy every morning turns out to be a slow-acting betrayal that stealthily destroys their health and depletes their finances? Before we learn that the cup we are holding may be filled with dangers rather than relief, how many more mornings will we swallow in naive trust? Years ago, the evidence had already begun to surface. Acrylamide, an industrial chemical waste, was found in Starbucks coffee at quantities up to 4 times greater than state safety standards, according to a California court. Acrylamide is not a benign substance. It has been connected to nerve diseases and malignancies. Nevertheless, there were never any cautions on the cups. The business took advantage of legal loopholes and remained silent as consumers inadvertently consumed poisons with their morning muffins. That's like marketing umbrellas that, when it rains, really leak water, isn't it? Seniors whose bodies are less able to absorb toxins are most affected by the betrayal, as every latte becomes a risk to their health. Chemicals, however, are only the surface of this bitter roast. Starbucks marketing portrays happy farmers and verdant slopes, but reports from Guatemala, Ethiopia, and Brazil present a much harsher picture. Child laborers handled pesticides that were previously prohibited in Europe years ago, while hunched over in temperatures of up to 100 degrees. Executives had been warned, according to later leaked internal communications. Instead of taking action, they allowed the warnings to remain at the bottom of the pot like sour espresso. One can't help but ask if we're paying for fair when the company's claims about ethical sourcing seem flimsy. Is it trade or only the use of elegant Italian drink names to cover up exploitation? Their purported advances have also taken a detour. Within 6 months of its debut, over 370 incident reports regarding nausea, diarrhea, and stomach pains flooded in, despite the well-publicized oleato olive oil-infused line's heart-healthy claims. Customers, many of whom were elderly and on medication, were not laughing from their hospital beds when baristas joked that it was actually a colon cleanse. Even now there is no apology or recall, just a silent shuffle of the menu boards that seems to be hiding evidence beneath the froth. Does progress taste like this? Sickness masquerading as culture? They don't have any better syrups. Sucralose, the sweetener in the sugar-free pumps, was identified by new toxicity evaluations in 2024 for interfering with gut flora and insulin sensitivity. Their matcha was bulked out with cornstarch and food dye, according to lab testing, which increased earnings while eroding trust. There are hazards associated with even almond milk lattes. According to customer reviews, the oxalates are high enough to exacerbate kidney issues. There is less comfort and more chemical roulette in the cup as each concealed threat builds upon the one before it. Millions of people continue to wait in line, thinking that one more won't hurt. That resignation is precisely what companies rely on. Isn't that the cruelest deception of all? As we look ahead, the situation becomes even more bleak. 48 states have already been affected by recalls. But what if even more frightening facts are exposed in the next scandal? Undisclosed ingredients, pesticide residues, or unspoken adverse consequences that authorities covertly ignored. Will Starbucks continue to deny the existence of the lawsuits until they outnumber their Christmas cups? Or will there eventually be a tipping point when consumers can see through the branding to the decay underneath? These are important questions because the more we drink in quiet, the more betrayed we feel. The system wants you to believe that there are no alternative options. Local roasters such as Counterculture Coffee proudly display their bean origins and report pesticide tests. Dean's Beans supports fair trade certification and opposes child labor. More safety, lower costs, and genuine peace of mind can be achieved even with a simple home brewing system. Budget constraints make the decision difficult, yet this is the most difficult question. While betrayal is cheap everywhere, why are working Americans pushed into a corner where safety costs more? Starbucks might still give you a cup with your name on it, but maybe that's the only moniker it merits these days. Dunkin comes in second. It feels like America's comfort food in liquid form when you go into a Dunkin at daybreak. Speed, affordability, and a small boost to get through another exhausting day are all promised by the orange and pink sign. That steaming cup for $2.79 is the only minor luxury that many elderly Social Security recipients can still afford. But what if that identical cup, cheap, well-known, and trustworthy, was concealing mold, lead, and toxins? While the brand grins and declares, "America runs on Dunkin'," how many grandparents, shift workers, and retirees are unwittingly sipping their way into hospital wards? Look at that. It's not a small number. Over 160 Dunkin' locations in 13 states were cited by Food Integrity Watch in late 2024 for keeping pre-ground coffee in moldy, damp closets, some of which were left unattended for weeks. Ochratoxin A, a fungus toxin linked to renal failure and memory loss, was discovered in lab experiments. This was being consumed daily by elderly people who were already dealing with high blood pressure or early dementia. The FDA conducted 47 retail inspections, took silent corrective action, and never made the public aware of it. What is the number of cups required before renal scarring starts? How many mornings did families drink poison in the mistaken belief that it was a harmless way to relax? Then there is the cutting of corners. Workers in Queens were caught on camera pouring stale coffee into fresh brews and reusing filters up to 8 times by a whistleblower. Leaked supplier audits revealed that 23 additional locations failed sanitation tests in the same quarter, despite corporate calling the viral clip isolated. There were even cockroach droppings near the grinder at one Florida facility, but nothing was done about it. Wouldn't you toss everything out if this were your kitchen at home? Why must customers bear the repercussions while a billion-dollar franchise gets to ignore bugs and reuse filters? A nasty twist is added by the water. Dunkin' Brewers was put to the test in 6 cities by the Consumer Environmental Health Alliance. Lead concentrations were higher than 5 parts per billion in 3, including Milwaukee and St. Louis. Hot in a paper cup, lead, the poison we've been fighting for decades to eradicate from pipes and paint. Every morning, seniors, the demographic most susceptible to neurological decline, may be silently drinking coffee spiked with lead. How many strokes and memory loss may be attributed to a company saving money on water filters rather than aging? Because the alternative feels worse, people continue to drink. There aren't many options at 5 in the morning. According to a recent survey, 41% of Americans over 60 with modest incomes choose Dunkin' mostly because of the price. Since local roasters don't open before morning and Starbucks is out of their price range, they take a chance on their health, telling themselves that it won't matter if they have one more cup. However, statistics indicate otherwise. Millions of people suffer from chronic low-level lead poisoning, and thousands of hospital admissions each year are already connected to renal problems brought on by mold toxins. The irony grows as we look to the future. As part of a community care initiative, Dunkin' announced plans to open cafes in hospitals and senior institutions by 2026. Imagine selling the same coffee that has already been linked to lead and mold in medical facilities. Facilities for people with the most vulnerable brains and kidneys. Will the number of emergency room visits increase when elderly people inadvertently consume tainted beverages in the very structures designed to treat them? Or will authorities finally take a stand and impose stringent freshness and water filtering regulations on all franchises? Neither future is consoling, but both are plausible. This need not be the case. Beans are triple tested for mycotoxins by Joe Coffee in New York. Verve Coffee Roasters makes investments in employee welfare and stringent freshness. Cafe Mom supports local farmers while sourcing beans free of pesticides. Your body can be better protected by even a cheap French press at home with pure water than by a cheap cup of sludge. However, this is the more serious reality. We have learned to tolerate filth masquerading as familiarity thanks to Dunkin. Which is scarier, the mildew and lead in the cup or the fact that we've become so numb that we continue to drink? Third place goes to McDonald's. That dollar and change McCafe cup seems like the last good deal in America to some people. Seniors on fixed incomes arrive at McDonald's at dawn, holding coins or crumpled notes, and depart with a paper cup that feels somewhat comforting. It's reliable, affordable, and quick. Or so it appears. However, the glow immediately fades when the golden arches are peeled back. Not simply coffee is being poured into those styrofoam cups. Regulators continue to tiptoe around a trickling trickle of chemical trickery, machine filth, and transnational shortcuts. How many retirees have boasted about saving money only to discover that their wise investment may actually be costing them hospital stays? Let's start with the beans. McDonald's claims to be 100% Arabica, but the European Food Watch Consortium's analysis revealed that shipments from Colombian and Vietnamese vendors frequently used ammonia cleaning. Consider beans that are so old that they require a chemical spray tan to appear new. Whistleblowers even made jokes about using it as rotten bean cosmetics. Rot is not merely concealed by these industrial recovery techniques. Seniors who drink every day bear the consequences of the residues they leave behind. Shouldn't truth in advertising mean more than coffee beans that have been photoshopped? Toxic traces continue to appear, which is far worse. When the Global Chemical Risk Network tested McDonald's coffee in 2023, they discovered chlorpyrifos, a pesticide that is banned in Europe due to its association with memory loss and nerve damage. 3 of the 5 samples had remnants. Is it legal in the United States? Safe from a technical standpoint for clients over 60 whose brains are already more susceptible? Not at all. According to McDonald's own demographic data, the largest proportion of McCafe drinkers are over 55. How ironic that the most targeted group is also the one most in danger. Furthermore, the machines reveal a different terror, even if the beans were perfect. Photos of brewing units covered in hard water crust, insects, birch durst raisin, toffee rose spot raisining, and brown slime were released by employees in 2024. A class action complaint cited more than 220 shops across 12 states. Without any warning, thousands of customers might have consumed coffee tainted with germs. That's not a huge inconvenience for an elderly customer with a compromised immune system. It poses a direct danger. If the only metric that counts is profit per minute, why clean the machines? The water follows. Instead of using filtered lines, many McDonald's businesses connect brewers to simple public pipes. Lead is still present in those pipes in elderly towns in the Midwest and South. According to a 2022 consumer lead test conducted in Flint, Michigan, McDonald's coffee had lead levels of 8.3 parts per billion, which was 5 times higher than those of Panera or Starbucks nearby. Lead has more than simply a metallic taste. It erodes long-term health, blood pressure, and memory. How many elderly people already attribute their mental haze to aging when their morning coffee may be subtly poisoning them? And things don't appear to be getting any better. McDonald's and FNC Trading established a 2025 cooperation aimed at 12% global coffee cost reduction. The catch? FNC is notorious for importing low-quality beans from Honduras and Sumatra that have parchment defects, imports that no European oversight body would ever permit. What will cheaper beans signify? More baths with bleach? More pesticides that are hidden? More whispered grievances? Will the FDA ever require complete disclosure of the sources and methods of cleaning? Or will someone else have to jeopardize their career in order to alert the public? When will the next scandal occur? You don't have to accept sludge that passes for savings. Every week, California's Better Buzz coffee checks its water. In Canada, Kicking Horse Coffee maintains its fair trade certification and completely opposes chlorpyrifos. For a safer option for elderly digestion, Laird Superfood Coffee even offers beans that have been pre-tested for contaminants and combined with prebiotic fiber. Despite what companies would have you believe, there are options. Even still, millions more people will wait in line tomorrow for a $1 refill, grumbling that it's only coffee. Is it though? Or are those who deserve better receiving a chemical compromise that was brewed in a filthy machine? What does it say about us if this is how we treat the generation that fought the wars, constructed the freeways, and reared the families? Furthermore, what do you believe McDonald's will eliminate next in order to save 12%? Death Wish coffee is the fourth item. Originally intended as edgy marketing, the term now sounds prophetic. Raw vitality was promised by the strongest coffee in the world, a beverage so potent that it could propel retirees through restless evenings and truck drivers across nocturnal highways. People believed they were getting strength for less than $3 per can. Rather, a lot of people were unwittingly playing with one of the most deadly poisons in the world. Following testing that indicated a possible botulinum toxin contamination, the FDA compelled a worldwide recall of Death Wish Nitro Cold Brew in 2017. It's not a high-tech laboratory chemical. The same paralyzing substance that can shut down lungs in a matter of hours is used as a weapon in bio-warfare. Before the alarm was raised, thousands of cans had already been sold. How many elderly Americans were consuming paralysis in a fashionable can instead of striving for alertness? Death Wish produced the ideal circumstances for botulism when canning its nitro brews, low-acid, oxygen-free vessels. Later, the FDA verified that the business had omitted a crucial sterilizing step that was acknowledged by the industry. To put it simply, they risked their lives to cut expenses. The epidemic danger was deemed significant by experts. It was a risky venture for young individuals. It was essentially a death sentence waiting to happen for elderly people with compromised immune systems and slower rates of recovery. How many grandparents, unaware that they might be consuming a biological weapon, opened a can to keep themselves up during bingo night? The caffeine levels themselves, however, are concerning even in the absence of botulism. Some doses of Death Wish contain around 470 milligrams, which is nearly 5 times as much energy as a Red Bull. At least 112 ER visits linked to extreme coffees were recorded by watchdog groups in 2023, with Death Wish topping the list. At a community hall, a Florida retiree passed out in the middle of a game because her pacemaker was unable to handle the surge. After making local headlines, the story disappeared. How many such situations, rather than being dismissed as the result of corporate irresponsibility, are never reported in the media? Isn't this evidence that a company that boasts about pushing boundaries is pushing its clients toward hospital beds? It's a cruel irony. Death Wish promotes disobedience, but its true product is danger-encased tiredness. The most susceptible members of its base are long-distance drivers, night shift workers, and elderly Americans who are compelled to keep their bodies moving in a system that prevents them from taking breaks. Although the corporation maintains that its safety procedures are set, the future is less clear. The distinction between energy and overdose will continue to become hazy as long as their main selling feature remains the same. Will there be another sterilization failure in the upcoming recall, or will a verified caffeine-related fatality be the next scandal? In any case, the question is not whether, but when. Customers should have power without poison. Although biohazard coffee also has a high caffeine content, each batch is subjected to separate microbiological testing. For senior consumers, 4 Sigmatic's coffee and mushroom blend helps to protect the immune system and reduce spikes. Or just brew bold without taking any chances by grinding organic equal exchange beans at home. Customers should continue to serve as crash test dummies for Death Wish's marketing ploy rather than whether the movie is edgy. Which is more rebellious, choosing health over hype before the next disaster brewing or investing in a skull-branded gamble? Folgers. Coffee comes in at number 5. Folgers has been selling feelings for decades in addition to coffee. Routine, nostalgia, and that catchy song about mornings being better with their coffee were all promised by the red container on the shelf. Folgers felt like safety in a can for working-class families and seniors trying to make ends meet. Affordable, well-known, and consistently accessible at Walmart or the neighborhood supermarket. However, when comfort conceals danger, it leaves a terrible aftertaste. There is a harsher reality hidden beneath the endearing advertisements of happy grandparents pouring mugs for their grandchildren. Toxic heavy metals, mold toxins, and chemical residues that would never pass European customs have led to Folgers being flagged on multiple occasions. The brand targets elders and low-income households who are least equipped to defend themselves or find alternatives, so the insult is particularly hurtful. The figures are terrifying. Folgers was ranked among the worst coffee products in a 2021 Clean Label Project study of 147 goods with detectable levels of cadmium and lead. Cadmium levels in a single cup of their classic roast were nearly at California's Proposition 65 daily safety limit. Millions of older Americans already suffer from kidney deterioration and brittle bones, which are linked to cadmium. High levels of lead, the same poison that was prohibited from gasoline decades ago for diminishing children's brains, were later confirmed by Consumer Reports in Folgers instant coffee. Imagine it gradually infiltrating the everyday lives of elderly people whose memory is already failing. How many instances of just growing older are the result of a brand's covert, innocuous actions? The mold issue is just as horrifying. In examinations conducted in 2022, certain Folgers products had the fungus toxins aflatoxin and ochratoxin A, which have been linked to cancer. In tropical nations where Folgers buys inexpensive bulk commodities, these poisons flourish when beans are kept in moist silos. Shipments containing those amounts of toxins are confiscated and destroyed in Europe. They're ground, packed, and marketed in a bright red jar for $7.99 in America. Is there a more blatant indication that older Americans are viewed as less important than European consumers? Irony poisons even the decaf. To remove caffeine, Folgers uses methylene chloride, a solvent that the EPA has identified as a possible carcinogen. Although it is permitted in the United States, remnants have been discovered in the finished product. Therefore, the retiree who decides to drink decaf in order to protect a delicate heart might be taking a different kind of danger. That would be like substituting arsenic for aspirin, wouldn't it? Folgers does not provide a safe option, the promise of respite in case is a novel issue. Over 128,000 hospitalizations in the United States were linked to foodborne toxins in 2023, according to the CDC. Seniors are most affected. Coffee isn't. The sole offender, however, scientists caution that tainted beans are a little-known cause of liver and kidney damage. The parent firm of Folgers, J.M. Smucker, spends millions of dollars promoting advertisements portraying calm mornings spent with retirees. It's possible that those retirees are the ones who silently bear the cost of medical expenses and hospital stays. The future appears much more bleak. Due to soil stress brought on by climate change, beans in supplier nations are absorbing more heavy metals and becoming more susceptible to mold. Folgers is particularly vulnerable because of their reliance on inexpensive bulk beans. Will the following crop see an even greater surge in cadmium? Will aflatoxin levels continue to rise until legal action compels a label to disclose the truth? Or will authorities keep ignoring elderly as they pour another cup? The future smells more like betrayal than breakfast for a brand that is based on nostalgia. There are safer alternatives. Imported from Germany, Mount Hagen Organic Instant Coffee satisfies stringent EU regulations and is USDA Organic certified. In the United States, purity coffee is becoming more and more popular among athletes and physicians after third parties test each batch for mold, metals, and pesticides. Don Francisco's organic beans at Costco provide cleaner sourcing for consumers on a tight budget, although the price difference is little. Those choices might be the best deal when weighed against the potential long-term medical bills Folgers may be causing. Thus, the question remains, Before Americans make the connection between what's in their cup and what's happening to their bodies, how many more mornings will they spoon Folgers into the filter? Is this coffee, really? Or has Folgers evolved into the least expensive way to distribute chemicals that are hidden from view? Will anyone at Smucker's acknowledge that they never sold comfort when the illusion ultimately breaks? It was jingling betrayal. Black Rifle Coffee is number 6. Black Rifle Coffee is one of the few coffee companies that has wrapped itself in patriotism. It assured working-class Americans, particularly veterans and older men, that every sip was an act of loyalty in advertisements adorned with flags, weapons, and liberation slogans. However, beyond the veneer of branding comes a troubling mixture of poisonous residues, deceptive claims, and political intrigues. Many retirees have been sold treachery in a bag, despite their belief that they were upholding integrity and service. Global Clean Foods conducted lab testing in 2023 and discovered glyphosate and paraquat contamination in beans connected to Black Rifle's bulk lines. Because paraquat is so toxic, even low-level exposure has been connected to Parkinson's disease, which is already a serious concern for millions of elderly people. Meanwhile, billion-dollar cancer lawsuits have focused on glyphosate. Beans with these residues would be confiscated at customs in Europe. They were proudly sold under the Black Rifle label after being roasted and bagged in the United States. Just nationalistic packaging, concealing global shortcuts, no warnings, no recalls. How many senior citizens drank their morning coffee without knowing they were ingesting potentially harmful chemicals? The uneasiness was only exacerbated by the politics. Investigations by ProPublica and The Intercept revealed donations that were sent through political organizations and ultimately connected to extremist agendas. The response was characterized as a brand amplifier in internal communications. Anger wasn't a coincidence. The business model included it. It feels like being drafted into a war they never agreed to fight for retirees who believed their money was helping veterans to learn that it may have fanned division. The lies don't stop there. Black Rifle was accused in a Texas class action lawsuit in 2024 of marketing some roasts as single origin, despite internal documents revealing blends from at least 3 nations, including plantations connected to forced migrant labor. For consumers who were brought up with integrity and diligence, being deceived by a business that is cloaked in patriotism is the most heinous form of deception. There are also health hazards. According to a 2023 survey conducted by the VA, over 19% of veterans who drank Silencer Smooth and calf blends, which contain more than 300 milliliters of caffeine per cup, reported experiencing negative side effects, insomnia, palpitations, and severe acid reflux. In a single year, emergency room doctors in Kentucky and Oklahoma documented 22 instances in which Black Rifle was mentioned before to tachycardia attacks. That is not a strange adverse effect for elderly people taking heart medicine. The ticket to the hospital is direct. The future appears to be even more dire. Pesticide use in Latin America is expected to increase by 35% by 2030 due to climate stress. Chemical residues will rise if Black Rifle keeps looking for the lowest prices. However, its divisive branding runs the danger of offending major retailers, which would probably force farmers to make more drastic cost reductions. Which controversy occurs first? A boycott as politics backfire, or a recall following paraquat spikes? In either case, the cost will fall on regular Americans. There are better ways. North Carolina veteran coffee roasters procure pesticide-free beans and make open donations to rehabilitation centers. Rainforest Alliance certified beans that have undergone extensive toxicity testing are available in Lavazza's Tierra range, or make it easy. Purchase from Cooperative Coffees, a collective owned by farmers, and use a pour-over kit to brew at home. The true question is whether Americans will continue to allow businesses to sell polluted goods while simultaneously raising flags. Are we being utilized as pawns in a branding battle, or are we appreciating service? What else are we mindlessly consuming when your daily coffee conceals poison and treachery? Sign up today. Remain awake. We appreciate you staying with us through the very finish. To ensure you don't miss any of our daily updates, please remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Feel free to view some of our most recent and well-liked videos as they appear on your screen. I'll see you at the next one. Goodbye.